I'm a Mac guy. This is a PC, and I've been using it for a month. Can you guess what I think? Hello and welcome back to Mark Ellis Reviews. Thank you for subscribing if you have. If you haven't subscribed, the button's just down there. So I've had the Surface Laptop 4, the Microsoft Surface Laptop 4 for about a month now, I reckon. And as I've mentioned in previous videos, I was genuinely really excited about getting this laptop. If you've not come across my channel before, I do have a bit of a tendency, to put it mildly, to talk about Apple stuff and obviously in particular Macs. So buying a Windows laptop for the first time I think in about 20 years was quite a big deal. And a little while ago I gave my first impressions of this laptop from a Mac guy's perspective, but today I'm going to give you my full review of the Microsoft Surface Laptop 4. Right, the spec I went for, I've got to check this because, and this isn't me being silly and facetious about Windows laptops, I genuinely can't remember what the specs are. So as I always do, I went for the base spec version of this Surface laptop. And the reason I do that is because, well, firstly, because it's expensive to run these channels and I have to be careful about how much money I spend on gear. But secondly, because I always want to get that base level experience. I did it with the M1 MacBook Air, I did it with the iMac as well. I just want to know what you get for the least amount of money. So in terms of the specs, I am going to have to refer to this, so bear with me. It has the AMD Ryzen 5 4680U, although you can get it with an Intel Core i5 and i7 if you want to. It has 8GB of RAM, a 13.5-inch touch screen, the 256 gig of SSD storage, and this is the Platinum version, which comes with a Alcantara, I can never get this word right, Alcantara, there you go, surface for where the keyboard is, so it's this kind of soft surface. Now you can get a full metal version, you can also get a matte black version, which I really wanted, but you had to get the next spec up, so I didn't. I stuck to my guns, got the cheaper version. And all of that was £999. I paid a little bit less in the UK. I used a company called John Lewis to get this from, and they also give you 2 years warranty there, which is quite nice. So depending on where you are in the world, hopefully you can find a similar kind of deal. But yeah, if you buy this directly from Microsoft and other online stores, you'll pay £999 for that, and that includes VAT in the UK, and that pits it pretty squarely against the M1 MacBook Air, because the base level M1 MacBook Air is also $999. However, this video isn't a comparison between those two laptops. I will do that at some stage once I've had more time with this. Today, I'm just going to talk about this base level Surface Laptop 4. I talked about the design of this laptop in the initial impressions video that I did for you, and I think it's really nice. It's got this kind of tapered design that you get with MacBook Airs, and a lot of laptops these days have that kind of design where it slopes down like that. Very thin, it's light enough. Again, I know I wasn't comparing this to the MacBook Air, but it is a point of comparison in a weird way. So in terms of weight, it feels very similar to the MacBook Air. I like everything about it. It's got this nice mirrored Microsoft logo there, which all looks good. Now, yes, I did go for the Alcantara keyboard, which does get quite a bit of stick actually. And I've not had this long enough, but I know that people who've had these laptops and the kind of regular Surface devices with this material will tell you that it doesn't wear particularly well. And apparently if you go into Microsoft stores, I never have done, but if you do, and you see these on display, they look a bit grubby. It does look like it could get quite grubby. It really does. Like I say, I've only had it for a month, so it's not fair. I mean, it looks fine. It looks like brand new at the moment, but I can imagine it could get a bit horrible. That said, I do like the look of it. I really like the feel of it. I'll come on to the feel of it a bit later because that kind of relates to the whole experience with the keyboard, but I like it. Feels really sturdy. It's just a nice industrial design. In terms of ports, it does have a USB-A port that you can see there, which is rather wonderful. I'm a bit old-fashioned like this. I think many people might be watching this and kind of scoffing at it, but the presence of a USB-A port is actually quite nice. I've not used it yet, to be fair, but the fact that I can just plug in any of my accessories. So for example, I have several amp and DAC combinations here for headphone testing, and the ability just to plug one of them in without a dongle is great. Now it also has USB-C. It only has one USB-C, which is a bit of a shame. I'd like more than one personally, but that's all they give you. And if you don't know this channel, I don't do deep dives into specs and speed comparisons and benchmarks, all that sort of stuff. So I've done no speed tests with these whatsoever. All I can tell you is that it has a USB-A and a USB-C port. If you're worried about the speed, go and have a look at the specifications. That's not why I'm here. I want to tell you what this is like to live with day to day as a normal office machine. So yeah, only one USB-C port is a little bit irritating. Part of the reason for that is because I'm using the USB-C port to charge the laptop, which sounds normal until I turn it around and show you this. Now, I, like many people, when I saw the product shots, come on, focus. When I saw the product shots, I spotted this and immediately thought, Ooh, it's got an SD card slot. No, it hasn't. No, that is Microsoft's kind of proprietary charging port, which looks suspiciously like an SD card slot. It's not. Problem with that is if you watch this channel, you'll know that I'm obsessed with USB-C just because it's incredibly convenient. That's why I charge it via this, because you can charge it either via this weird thing here or via USB-C. It works with both. That's just a waste of space for me. I'd rather it was either another USB-C port or an SD card slot. That would be nice. Yeah. Odd decision that. Quick note on the screen as well. I've got to refer to the specs again. It's very sharp, and the reason for that, it's 201 PPI, so it's retina quality if you want to call it that. It's a touchscreen as well, and it's a nice screen. Lovely. Can't say too much more about it. The other thing I wanted to mention is that you can open this laptop with one finger by lifting the lid. My previous experience of Windows laptops is that you couldn't do that because you'd end up lifting up the entire thing. No, this does open up like a MacBook. Sorry, another comparison. But yeah, you can lift it up. Probably not from, oh, you can actually. There you go, with one finger. So design, top marks. Performance-wise, as I mentioned a moment ago, I do not do deep specs and, benchmarks and stuff like that. If you want that, go and watch someone like the Tech Chap. He's brilliant. But I will tell you what this is like to use day in, day out. And it's probably worth me explaining what I'm using this for. So I'm using this for general office type stuff. And you know what that is. It's email, it's Teams calls, it's working on the web. I do a lot of work in Notion. That's a kind of project management app that I use to run this channel. The only things I'm not doing on it are video editing, which takes place on the Mac Mini behind me, and I suppose photo editing, which I do on my iPad Pro. But apart from that, everything else I'm doing on this. Oh no, there is one other thing which I'm not doing on it, which is writing, which I'll get to later. So for me, this is like it's just a normal laptop to get stuff done. And for that, it's great. I had to look up the AMD Ryzen 5 actually, just to see what it's made up of. And it has 6 cores. There's lots of other details about it, which I won't bore you with. So it's not a particularly powerful chip, but it feels quite snappy. You don't feel like you're waiting around too much for things to happen. Once you're in apps and using them, it's just fine. I've had no, I should touch wood, I've had no crashes or blue screens of death. If they are still a thing, I don't know, let me know in the comments. None of that's happened. It hasn't done anything weird. And I think that's something which I was a little bit fearful of, completely unfairly, I admit. I think you get an idea of Windows in your head when you've been using Macs for a long time, that they're always crashing and getting viruses and stuff. And using this regularly for a month, it's not been a pain to use. It's actually been a joy to use. So this base spec, if you're just looking for a nice Windows laptop that's designed nicely and will get you through the day in terms of normal work, power-wise, there's bags of it in there, you're fine. And it's got 8 gig of RAM. It comes back to this 8 versus 16 gig of RAM thing, which I kind of went into with the new MacBooks and the M1 chip. And that just doesn't seem to matter with this. When you're doing normal work, the amount of RAM you've got doesn't really seem to matter. You can get away perfectly with the 8 gig. The only thing I have noticed occasionally is that the fan spins up, and I'm used to computers that don't make noises these days. So for the fan to kick in occasionally, even when it doesn't seem to be doing much in terms of, the computer's not slowing down at all, that was just surprising. It was a surprising thing to hear. Battery life, it's not bad. Again, I haven't done a big test with this because that's not what I do. I just like to see how it operates throughout the day. And I think the key thing with laptops, as I've always said, is standby time. That is one of the most important elements. Like anything really, anything battery powered, if you can put it into some kind of sleep mode, not plug it in and not worry about it, and pick it up and go and do something with it elsewhere without a charger, if you can do that relatively regularly throughout the day and throughout the week, it's an easy device to live with. If, on the other hand, you're always worried about plugging it into a charger or taking your charger with you and you're always leaving it plugged in overnight, which isn't great for batteries these days, then that's not a good device to live with. That's just a pain. This sits in the former camp, so I don't charge it particularly regularly. It doesn't seem to drink juice from the battery when it's in standby mode. I think one thing it does do, which I wasn't expecting really, is that occasionally I'll open the lid and it will be booting up. So I do think, and this might be a setting, let me know if that's the case, I do think it completely shuts itself down after a while, which might explain why it has such great standby time. But the boot up time is pretty quick, so that's not a big deal. In use, it will get you through a day, I think, really. It's quoted at being, I think, 19 hours. So 19 hours of normal use, as Microsoft calls it. I think it's not far off that, actually. It's a pretty decent battery. Keyboard. Right, now this keyboard, I'm going to put my neck on the line here and say this is the best laptop keyboard I've ever used. Quite a big claim, but I can make it, I think, personally, because I write an awful lot each week. If you follow my blog or follow my Medium profile, you'll know that I produce lots of content, lots of written content. This keyboard is lovely. It's got just enough travel, given the relatively thin profile of the actual device itself. And it has this odd thing, which is probably a bit of a manufacturing defect, to be honest, but I think it kind of aids the typing experience, which is there's a lot of flex in the chassis. So when you press down the keys, visibly the whole thing depresses. It's a bit bouncy. I've never had a laptop that does that before, but I think it actually aids the typing experience because it adds a bit of travel. And when you combine that with the actual keys themselves, which will feel very nice, and when you combine it with the Alcantara palm rest, it's just a very comfortable keyboard to type on and an enjoyable. It makes a nice laptop-y type keyboard sound. I like that. I really love typing on this. But that said, that does lead me onto one of the big issues I've had with this laptop. So the switch from macOS to Windows has actually been relatively painless. I think because I haven't carried across my video editing into Windows, that's made it a bit easier. I've not had to get used to something like Premiere. Everything else just works, you know, Trello, Toggle, Notion, web browsing. Edge is a brilliant web browser. If you've heard bad things about Microsoft Edge, forget about it. It's really, really good. I think I might do some videos on that at some stage. Everything else, there was an app for it on Windows. So getting things across and just using it, it was fine. It worked brilliantly. The thing I've really struggled with, which relates to the keyboard, is finding a decent writing app on Windows. I've written about it. I'll leave a link to a blog that I wrote about this in the description if you want to check that out. I use on the Mac an app called Ulysses, which is this brilliant writing app, and it gives you distraction-free writing. It links with WordPress, so you can very easily export your blogs to WordPress. It has built-in folder organization, and it introduces you to a very simple form of Markdown language, which I won't go into that now, but it's just a brilliant, it's the best writing app I've found. And when you write as many words as I do each week, you need a tool that makes it an easy process. So I was hoping, or just assuming actually, that Ulysses either would be available on Windows. It's not, it's just a Mac only app, or there would be a Windows equivalent. I cannot find one. If you know of an app on Windows that is comparable to Ulysses on the Mac, please let me know. Either email me, mention it in the comments. Now this is a Windows issue, I know that. I'm not leveling this problem at the Microsoft Surface itself. It's just been disappointing because it's kind of stopped me from using this quite as much as I wanted to. So what else do you get for your money with the Surface Laptop 4? Because it's not an inconsequential amount of money. It's £1,000, $1,000. However, there are two things that you get if you're coming from the Mac ecosystem, which I think are definitely worthy of mention. One of them is the touchscreen. So this is a touchscreen laptop, and it's the first one I've used properly, really. Again, I've written about this, I talked about it a bit in my previous video, which I'll link to above. I just find myself naturally touching that screen. And a lot of people have said, yeah, but that's just because you're new to the laptop, it's a new toy, you're pressing it. It's not, it just feels natural. I know there are only certain touch targets on the screen that make sense to reach out and press with your finger, and they're the ones that I tend to go for. The other pretty cool thing is at the top here, which is facial recognition. It all kind of sits under the banner of Windows Hello, which is the kind of security layer that sits around Windows. It includes facial recognition and PIN numbers, all that sort of stuff, all the security stuff. I don't know enough about Windows Hello to say how secure it is compared to other forms of biometric security. All I do know is that when you open your laptop, this laptop in particular, and it recognizes your face, it logs you in, and it's the best thing ever. I love it. I absolutely love it. And it's very, very accurate. It works all the time. It's never failed me. But they're the only two things I can think of, really. And I'm only mentioning them because I come from a Mac background, so to me, they're new. Apart from that, this is just a solid laptop. It's just a very solid laptop that doesn't really have any frills. You know, it doesn't have a tablet mode. You can't detach the screen. It's just a good laptop. Would I recommend the Surface Laptop 4? Absolutely. If you've got £999 or $999 to spend and you need just a workhorse is probably the best way of describing this laptop, and you want to use Windows, it works brilliantly for that. I think it's really good value for money. It's early days. I've only had it for a month. I will return in the future and give you a bit more of a long-term review of it to see how it's kind of fared, especially that Alcantara cover. Initial impressions are really, really good. I really like this laptop. I'm genuinely impressed by the build quality. It has some strange things, you know, I don't know why they use this proprietary charging thing, but it's a small gripe, really. This is just a very good laptop, very good value for money, perfectly powerful, lots of battery life, looks good. Admittedly, I don't have anything to compare it with at the moment. This is the first laptop I've owned of a Windows variety for a long time. But if you want a genuine, complete bare bones Windows experience without any bloatware and rubbish put on top of it, I highly recommend the Surface Laptop 4. Now, I'm not finished with this yet. I'm gonna do lots more stuff with this in terms of comparing it with the obvious devices that I've mentioned in today's video. So expect more content for that. So if you haven't subscribed already, make sure you subscribe and hit the little bell just to get any notifications when my videos come through. But if you would like to see that first impressions video where I talk a little bit more about how macOS compares to Windows from my perspective, then keep watching for a link to that video. But in the meantime, thank you as always for watching. I'll catch you next time.